Guys, I honestly think that this is the best fusion rifle in the game for both PvE and for PvP. And by the way, stated in the most recent TWAB, Reservoir Bursts should be seeing more consistency. Essentially, its detonation had some sort of delay on it, but they're going to be speeding that up, and that'll actually be dropping tomorrow in the July update, which we will be testing live on our Twitch channel, amongst all the other sandbox changes. But today, guys, I do want to focus on Plug One, as this has turned into one of my favorite fusion rifles in the game. And this comes from someone who played with the Godrow Erentils, who has the Godrow Glacial Chasms, who loves Telesto. But I gotta say, Plug is nice, and its Adept version just makes it nastier. Today, guys, we're gonna be going through all these roles right here that you see in front of you. Intermix is a number of God roles that I previously farmed, as well as the roles that we farmed a few weeks ago with Glassway when going after the Adept role. I did single out a few other roles that I couldn't obtain from some of our folks inside of our Discord, as I wanted to know what exactly is the God role. I mean, we talked about it before, we gave our statements, but until we actually played with each one of these roles, we can't really say for sure. So starting with role number 1, we have Particle Repeater, which by the way, does give you a flat plus non-stability buff here on this fusion, but it also states that it constrains recoil for every bolt. Guys, the more and more I play with fusion rifles, and specifically Particle Repeater, the more I start to believe this is like the full choke of fusion rifles. There is noticeably more consistency outside of just the buff from stability that is granted here from Particle Repeater. Even when we do like a side-by-side comparison, shooting bolts, you can see that Particle Repeater seems to be consolidating those bolts a little more throughout that fusion rifle's entire blast. Now, heating up is the first trait, which we actually have not played with heating up on a fusion rifle, but essentially final blows with this weapon increases accuracy and stability while improving vertical recoil. Fellas, heating up on a fusion rifle is absolutely S tier. Yes, you got to get a kill first, but once you get a kill, the accuracy buff that is included there with stability, as well as its vertical recoil, is disgusting. I truly felt like I could not miss once I got heating up going. Even certain shots that were like landing, there would be like a group of bolts that would hit, and it would almost look like I was missing, but somehow heating up would grant me the kill. And I've used heating up on other weapons, but not on a fusion rifle. And it is disgusting here on Plug One, considering that the charge time isn't the fastest, but relatively fast at 740. Chaining back-to-back kills here with Plug One is not a difficult task. Now, the final trait on this role is Cornered. Essentially, faster charge time or draw time when surrounded by combatants. Now, it needs to be 2 or more combatants in order to proc Cornered. We actually timed this to see how much it actually drops your charge time, but we're averaging somewhere around that 660 charge time. So essentially, this precision frame fusion rifle does drop down close to the same charge time, maybe a little bit faster than adaptives, which is quite impressive considering you don't lose any damage. It's not like backup plan. And believe me, fellas, I try to make this roll right here work. This one actually came with heating up and backup plan. This would have been the God roll years ago before backup plan got nerfed. But considering how much backup plan drops your damage down, which is about 34 damage per bolt, it's just not worth the trade-off, despite the increase there in charge time. Corner serves as a way of offering a faster charge time, but you have to satisfy one requirement, and that's simply to be surrounded. And honestly, there's really no better perk here to pair with something like heating up. Get into a group of enemies, have increased charge time with Cornered, have the increase there in stability accuracy from heating up with every kill. That stacks up to 2. You see where we're going with this, guys? In terms of multi-kills, this is by far the way to go. However, I do want to point out that even though Corner is a good perk, and I had some clips that definitely took advantage of Corner, if I had to really narrow it down though, there was only like a handful of moments that Corner actually saved me. Maybe it's because it's PC, maybe players do split up a little more than they do on console. Also, the map does play a big role in this, but as far as proccing Corner consistently, it just didn't happen as often as I hoped. And I know a lot of people love Corner for both PvP and for PvE, and considering all the other options that are present in that final column, outside of Kickstart, Corner really is the only option. Where corners seem to thrive the most is either playing super offensively with things like heating up and just charge into a group of enemies, although 9 times out of 10 you would die. Where it seemed to really shine though is in those moments that you have to play defensive, where you are backing up from a group of enemies that are trying to swarm you, especially if they're trying to swarm you with shotguns. That increase in charge time might just be enough to save your life. But again, there was only a handful of times where Corner actually procced for me and actually proved to be useful. I think I would still take other traits in that column, most notably either damage dealing perks or even something flat like high impact reserves, just so I could secure the 5 bolt kill on high resilience guardians. Which takes us to to our next roll. Now, everything that you saw in our previous roll with heating up, except instead of corner, we have Kickstart, which by the way, throws our damage up from 38 per bolt to 48 per bolt. A significant increase, and it increases the charge time. Its caveat, you have to be sprinting in order to actually gain this bonus damage and charge rate. Not only that, you have to slide after that sprint. You only have a small duration in order to take advantage of Kickstart, meaning if you don't have your enemy in front of you, you're not screwed, but you're definitely not able to take advantage of Kickstart. Now, I will say for fusion rifles, moving, sliding doesn't necessarily go with fusion rifle playstyles. It may go well with shotguns, but fusion rifles are meant for baiting, for backing up, for pulling people into a lane, not necessarily rushing aggressively. However, we talked about the God roll in our previous plug review that Kickstart alongside liquid coils would be a deadly combination, as it would increase the damage to essentially what you're seeing on the screen there, which is 48 per bolt. Base is actually 47 per bolt. So liquid coils is increasing the damage up just enough to secure kills on Guardians in 4 bolts to low to mid resilience. Now here's the problem. I wanted to know if heating up would be the play. Rush in, proc Kickstart, get the kill, proc heating up, we're off to the races, right? Kind of. Heating up is really good, and with corner, it's fantastic. Matter of fact, heating up with just about anything is fantastic. The problem is, Kickstart requires you to move, to slide, to be much more mobile than what you're really supposed to be with fusion rifles. All that mobility, especially mid-slide, results in your bolt accuracies being poo-poo. Now granted, once heating up is procced, you're great, but that's not the point of Kickstart. Kickstart is good for the initial attack. Heating up, it's great for everything after. And I thought this may be able to balance itself out, but it didn't work that way. Matter of fact, what I ran into a number of times here was actually Kickstart just being outright inaccurate. It needed help. Kickstart needs under pressure. It needs that improvement in stability and accuracy from the get in order to lock in that one-hit kill while immediately coming out of that slide. So yes, I was let down about this. I wanted this to be the roll because heating up felt so phenomenal with corner. But if you are gonna rock Kickstart, you really do need under pressure with it. And I know Exile's Curse has Kickstart. I've got a few rolls with Kickstart on it. The difference over there is I just rock Slide Shot with Kickstart, which actually is pretty nice. And you can even do crazy things like hipfire grip with Kickstart and just hipfire, which we've also played with. Under pressure though, in my opinion, is just superior on a fusion rifle. Now it's not better than heating up. You could tell a noticeable difference with heating up, but heating up requires you to get a kill. Under pressure buffs not only that stability, but that accuracy initially. It requires nothing but your magazine to be on the lower end in order to proc this perk, which is all of us, considering we're only running around with 2 shots in our gun. And considering talks about an ammo nerf in the future, it appears things like under pressure is only going to get stronger. And again, accuracy is something completely separate. That's the beauty of heating up. It increases the accuracy. Under pressure, it increases the accuracy. It's not just a bump there to one of our visible stats, which is why those traits are noticeably better, which actually takes us to one other row I wanted to look at just to make sure. Again, very similar here. Everything's the same. Particle repeater, etc. Corner though, and killing wind. I talked about how good heating up feels on a fusion rifle, but what about killing wind? Does that increase in mobility, range, as well as handling make a big enough difference to choose it over under pressure or heating up? Now, I love killing wind on a lot of weapons. I love it on primaries. I've got an igneous hammer with killing wind. It's super nice. However, for this fusion rifle, whether it's something to be tied to the bolts and just the way fusion rifles work, because of that improvement in accuracy that comes from under pressure and heating up, you could tell that they are far superior than killing wind. And we tried to make killing wind work, guys. We gave it a go, but even my under pressure thresh roll was just outright spanking that killing wind corner roll. And we went back and forth with it because I wanted to know, did killing wind sit on level ground with heating up? Again, the range buff, super beneficial, especially on primaries. And I know when we look at fusion rifles, we think range is king, and it used to be, but stability is what really matters, especially on a precision frame fusion, and anything that can possibly touch your accuracy. Anything that can give it some love is what's gonna make the big difference for you on Plug One. Guys, we've played with a number of rolls that felt great, rolls that felt terrible. And depending on what role you've brought inside of PvP, you can leave with completely different conclusions about this fusion rifle. Some people hate it. They think it's terrible. But I can tell you right now, my experience playing with Plug, I think it's one of the best, if not the best, legendary fusion rifle in the game. Considering how fast everyone is moving inside of Crucible now, I need a faster charging fusion rifle that can keep up. High impacts for me just can't keep up anymore, unless of course you're playing bots. Outside of that, one other thing we did dabble with was actually the drop there in charge time. And this was interesting because again, this is an Adept fusion rifle and you can rock Adept charge time. But what if you take Adept charge time combined with accelerated coils? Turns out it appears that the damage is being capped in some sort of way. Despite my charge time being 660 here with accelerated coils and Adept charge time, the damage still remains 38 damage per bolt. Now granted, there could be some rounding there, but the point I'm trying to make is at 700 charge time, we do sit at 38 damage per bolt, which does match Adaptive's, but with 40 milliseconds more charge time. If you wanted to completely drop that charge time as much as you possibly can, you can do so, and your damage will stay 38 damage per bolt. Now granted, fusion rifles are difficult to actually sit down and test considering it shoots entire bolts. You have to intentionally miss bolts to see where the damage lies. So it could be something weird like 37.5. Maybe at 700 charge time, it's actually 38.5 and it's rounding down. Destiny has a weird way of rounding numbers. What I can tell you about dropping the charge time though, south of 700, depending on the map and depending on what you're going against, that faster charge time for your fusion rifle may actually be the play for you. And believe me, I love Adept stability, Adept range. Hell, you can even go Adept Icarus if you want, if you're taken to the air, as that not only buffs your airborne accuracy, but it also gives you an increase there in range. However, if you do keep your butt on the ground and you find yourself dealing with a lot of shotgun apes, try overcompensating there by dropping that charge time. However, I would not recommend it unless you're rocking under pressure, unless you're able to take advantage of that increase in stability and accuracy from the get, because that drop in damage, especially when you take in damage fall off into account, you really got to start landing those bolts. So I feel like for this God roll review, I have not definitively said what exactly is the God roll. So to just make it easy for you guys, I think particle repeater without a doubt is the way to go. As far as barrel perks, considering that this is a precision frame weapon, I didn't really feel like any of these barrel perks really made that big of a difference. Even with arrowhead break, I didn't really notice that big of a difference. So look for stat boosting barrel perks. And you may even want to settle for something in the middle like extended barrel or chamber compensator. But as far as the trait combinations, heating up corner is a fantastic combination. Under pressure kickstart is also a great combination for my more aggressive fusion rifle users. And if you're worried about sliding and getting killed in the process, rock it with Antaeus wards. You'll surprise a lot of shotgun apes. So guys, try out Plug One for yourselves. Not this week, but the next week. It will be back in rotation and it should be an easier farm, at least in comparison to Glassway. As for Reservoir Bursts, again, should be getting more consistent explosion kills starting tomorrow. And we'll be testing all of this live on our Twitch channel, so come see us. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.